the District Committee. Mr. General Manager, I'm calling this, everyone, I'm calling this meeting to order. Would you please call the roll to determine a quorum?
Happy to do so. Director Don Deere. Here. Chairwoman, President Gloria Gray.
Here.
Director Scott Houston. Director Tommy Favai. Director Desi Alvarez. Madam Chair, we do not have a quorum, though we do have both members of the committee, so we are able to proceed.
Can you tell me who's there?
Director Deere.
Thank you. All right, the next item is at public comments.
Madam President, there are no members of the public here that are in attendance, though this meeting is being held both in person and virtually. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak, please indicate so now by raising your virtual hand. And I do not see any.
All right, thank you. The next item is at presentations.
That is correct, but staff has no presentations.
All right, can you go to the next item, please?
Yes, Madam President. Item 5A begins a few legislative recommendations from staff. There's 5 in total, and so we'll run through those. So 5A is adopt a support position on AB 532 Water Rate Assistance Program. And for this presentation, we have Augustine Hahn, our Water Policy and Resources Development Analyst.
Thank you, EJ. Chairwoman Gray and Director Deere have the bill position before you. But before I begin, I just wanted to mention that all of the slides related to the action calendar can be found in the other section of the agenda packet. So we'll go ahead and get started. The staff report for AB 532 begins on page 3 of the agenda packet. Moving on to the next slide. AB 532 seeks to clarify the authority for a water supplier to run a low-income rate assistance program, or LIRA. This bill provides legal certainty and creates reporting requirements for retailers who create LIRA programs within their service area. Slide, please. And so for background, in February 2020, the state board released the report Recommendations for Implementation of a Statewide Low-Income Water Rate Assistance Program, highlighting the need for rate assistance throughout the state. Following the pandemic, the federal government funded a low-income household water assistance program in December 2020, which expired in May 2024. Recognizing this need, many water supply agencies have created and run their own programs to offset water bills for their low-income customers. However, some of these programs exist amidst uncertainty about whether they are legally allowable. AB 532 was introduced on February 11, 2025. The bill is authored by Senator Rhodesia Ransom. It is sponsored by CMUA and is set to be heard in Assembly Environmental Safety and Toxic Materials on April 29th. I should also mention that there is another bill which seeks to establish an assistance program. This is SB 350 by Senator Durazo. But AB 532 is the preferred method by the water industry. Moving on to the next slide. As far as benefits to West Basin, this aligns with the district's legislative and regulatory priorities number 9, and the board's past actions to support solutions for affordability. The supporters on this bill include the Metropolitan Water District, Aqua, and also CSDA. Next slide, please. And so the staff recommendation would be to adopt a support position on AB 532 Water Rate Assistance Program.
I move we do so.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Are there any questions regarding that item, Director Deere?
Nope.
No, I don't have any questions. Did you need a recommendation on it, or do you want to take one at a time?
Well, staff's recommendation is that the board adopt a support position on AB 532.
Move that.
All right, Director Deere, you okay to move it forward with the recommendation?
Yes.
I am also. All right, we can move it forward. The next item, please.
Okay, Madam Chair, the next item is 5B. It's adopt a support position on AB 514, water emergency water supplies. And for this presentation, again, we have Augustine Hahn.
Thank you, Jay. I will turn your attention to the presentation that we have. The staff report begins on page 13 of the agenda packet. So we'll move on to the next slide. AB 514 seeks to establish a state policy that recognizes the role emergency water supplies can play in water resilience and in encouraging greater investment and development of those supplies across the state. Next slide, please. For background, while water use efficiency will continue to play an important role in the face of climate change, water resilience for the future will require California to take different approaches in times of excess and times of shortage. An emergency water supply is a supply that has been developed by a water supplier to enhance its water supply reliability during times of shortage, and is a supply in addition to the baseline water supplies that the supplier has available. This bill is a reintroduction of SB 1218 by Senator Newman from the 2023-2024 legislative session. AB 514 was introduced on February 10th, 2025. The bill is authored by Senator Cotty Petrie Norris of Irvine and is sponsored by the Irvine Ranch Water District. Bill is currently set to be heard in Assembly Water Parks and Wildlife on April 29th. Next slide, please. As far as a benefit to West Basin, this aligns with the annual legislative and regulatory priorities #1, having to do with imported water supplies. Supporters on this bill include CMUA, the Southern California Water Coalition, Eastern Municipal Water District, Las Virgenes, San Diego County Water Authority, Three Valleys, and also Western Municipal Water District. Aqua will be considering this bill this Friday. It currently has a staff recommendation of favor. Moving on to the next slide. So the staff recommendation on this bill would be to adopt a support position on AB 514, and happy to answer any questions if there are any.
I thank you. Director Deere, any questions?
No, thank you.
All right. I don't have any questions either. Is it okay to move it forward with the recommendation, Director Deere?
Yes.
And I concur, so we'll move it forward with the staff recommendation. The next item, please.
Yes, the next item is item 5C. It's adopt a support position on HR 1871 and Senate or S 857, Water Conservation Rebate Tax Parity Act. And again, for this presentation, we have Augustine Hahn.
Thank you, EJ. Directors, the staff report can be found on page 19 of the agenda packet. And I'll turn your attention to the slides we have prepared. Moving on to the next slide. The Water Conservation Rebate Tax Parity Act would exempt rebates received for water conservation and efficiency, stormwater management, and wastewater management measures from the calculation of taxable income for federal income taxes. Next slide, please. For background context, the Water Conservation Rebate Tax Parity Act was introduced on March 5th by a bipartisan group in both House and Senate, including Senator Padilla and Representative Huffman. This is a reintroduction of an effort from the last Congress, which West Basin supported. And also on the state side, Governor Newsom signed into law AB 2142 in 2022, which reinstated the exclusion of any incentive received in connection with a conservation program from taxable income on state income taxes for taxable years 2022 through 2027. Next slide, please. As far as benefits to West Basin, this aligns with the district's legislative and regulatory priorities number 8, and also the board's past actions to support conservation. The coalition of support on this bill includes the Alliance for Water Efficiency, along with its sister or California section of CalWEP, California Water Efficiency Partnership. Other supporters include Cayugas, Eastern Municipal Water District, Foothill Municipal Water District, Long Beach Utilities, MoDOC, Three Valleys, Upper District, and also the League of Cities. I should mention that West Basin has a long-standing history of leadership in conservation. Over the past decade, West Basin has partnered to provide nearly $10 million in water-saving incentives within its service area. And I will also mention that West Basin Board selected both Senator Padilla and Representative Huffman for Legislator of the Year awards. And it would be nice to take a support position before the Washington, D.C. trip. Then moving on to the recommendation on the next slide. The recommendation would be to adopt a support position on the Water Conservation Rebate Tax Parity Act. And happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Thank you so much. Are there any questions, Director Deere?
No, thank you.
All right, I don't have any questions. Shall I move it forward with the recommendation, Director Deere?
Yes, I agree.
All right, I concur also. So next item, thank you.
That brings us to our final action calendar item. It's 5E. Participate in Los Angeles Region Imagery Acquisition Consortium 8. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped 5D. 5D, excuse me. Adopt and support position on the HR 1267, Water Systems PFAS Liability Protection Act. And we have Augustine for this presentation as well.
Thank you, EJ. Directors, the staff report begins on page 27 of the agenda packet. And we'll turn your attention to the slides that we have prepared. The bill seeks to exempt specified water management entities from liability under the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act, better known as CERCLA, for releases of certain PFAS varieties. Entities covered under the bill include public water systems, publicly owned or operated treatment works, municipalities with a stormwater discharge permit, and wholesale water agencies. And this bill seeks to acknowledge that the water industry are passive receivers of PFAS, not the generators of. Next slide, please. Provide some additional context. The bill is a reintroduction authored by Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming. I'm sorry, the bill last year was authored by Senator Lummis of Wyoming during the 118th Congress. PFAS, as you might be aware, are a group of man-made chemicals that have been used in industrial and consumer products, such as Teflon pans, fast food packaging, and firefighting foams since the 1940s. Over the years, PFAS has infiltrated into groundwater, into lakes and rivers, contaminating water supplies. Public water suppliers aren't the source of these chemicals, but some have worked to monitor PFAS levels through water quality testing. This bill was introduced February 21 of this year and is sponsored by Representatives Gluesenkamp Perez of Washington and Malloy of Utah. On to the next slide, please. As far as a benefit to West Basin, this aligns with the district's priorities, number 11, and the board's past actions to address PFAS. The bill also has a broad coalition of support, which includes the Association of Metropolitan Water Agencies, the American Water Works Association, National Association of Clean Water Agencies, National Association of Water Companies, National Rural Water Association, and the Water Environment Federation. Moving on to the recommendation, the staff recommends that the board adopt a support position on Water Systems PFAS Liability Protection Act. Happy to answer any other questions if there are any.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Director Deere. Any questions?
What's the explanation for the one-time cost to West Basin? $67,000.
I think that's in relation to another agenda item.
I'm reading the wrong one.
I apologize.
Oh, I was for 5E. Sorry. Forget it. Never mind. I'm for, Madam Chair, I'm for backing up the supporting the recommendation.
All right. Thank you, Director Deere. No other questions, then we'll move that forward.
Okay. And that does now bring us to item 5E, to participate in the Los Angeles Region Imagery Acquisition Consortium 8. And again, we have Augustine Hahn.
Thank you, EJ. Directors, the staff report can be found on page 35 of the agenda packet. And we'll get started here with the slides. And just in summary, the Los Angeles Regional Imagery Acquisition Consortium, or LARIAC, is a consortium of the County of Los Angeles in partnership with cities and agencies, which collaboratively acquires valuable digital aerial data, including imagery and elevation data. Next slide, please.
This might be one, because I think
To provide background, established in 2005, LARIAC has delivered highly accurate digital imagery and elevation data sets to participants at substantial cost savings, and has become a national model for collaborative data acquisition. One of the unique benefits of LARIAC is, because of this long-standing history, participants are able to access historical imagery, providing the opportunity to track how the service area has changed over time. LARIAC participants have included 52 cities, 27 county departments, 16 local, state, and federal agencies, and 7 educational institutions. A list of all these participants is included as an attachment to the agenda report. Moving on to the next slide. As far as benefits to West Basin, digital aerial imagery and elevation data provide valuable support for decision making. It's my opinion that the data that's provided by LARIAC is another brick in the foundation that staff can utilize for their work, and so really is a force multiplier. LARIAC advantages over off-the-shelf vendors like Google Earth and others include its certified accuracy. It also includes individual photo timestamping for all aerial imagery. The resolution standard is at 3 inches. It also provides multi-spectral imagery, including infrared, and it also includes overhead imagery as well as angled images in all 4 cardinal directions. Staff initially considered LARIAC to assist our retail agencies with the Making Conservation a California Way of Life regulations. But in meeting with LARIAC, it became apparent that the benefits could provide benefits to multiple departments and projects. And some of those include in the Water Policy and Resources Department, benefits to the Water Use Efficiency Program, to non-functional turf ban implementation, and also analysis of any county assessors data. This could also benefit the PI team in regards to outreach targeting and also client relationship management or CRM systems. And it also can provide benefits to engineering and operation, for asset management, planning, and other operational activities. Next slide, please. So the cost is a one-time fee of $67,000 and some change for membership that begins January 1 of 2026 and extends through the end of calendar year 2028. And the remainder of 2025 is provided as a bonus to West Basin as well. On behalf of a cross-departmental team, staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to sign a letter of intent on behalf of West Basin to participate as a funding partner of Lariac 8, providing the district with all access to data and images through December 31, 2028. I also want to give a special thank you to the operations team for providing their invaluable GIS. That concludes the presentation, and happy to answer any questions.
Would like to make one additional comment, Chairwoman Gray, and that's just that we do have funds that are in our FY 24-25 budget for this purpose. It was to specifically serve our retailers in the conservation framework, which this would absolutely do and allow us to do that for the next few years. But as Augustine mentioned, in doing our research for this, we found other potential benefits as well that expand beyond that. But I did want to mention up front that we do have the funding budgeted for it for this year, but it would be for a 3.5-year period essentially. So it gives us benefits not just in this fiscal year, but in the coming fiscal years as well. So.
Great point.
All right, thank you for that additional comment. Thank you for the presentation. Augustine, thank you so much. Director Deere, any questions?
No questions. I'm for passing it on.
All right, thank you. We support the recommendation. All right, the next
Yep.
item, please.
Madam Chair, that brings us to our information calendar, item 6A. It's our state and federal legislative update for the month of March 2025. And for this presentation, we have Matt Vey, our Manager of Water Policy and Resource Development, along with Augustine Hahn.
Thank you, EJ. And good afternoon, directors. I'll begin on page 47 of the agenda packet. The slides that I'm going through are attached in the other section of the agenda packet. And also say that the state bill packet can be found on page 53 with the federal update on page 70. Let's go ahead and go to the first slide, please. Thank you. So just to start off, we had a nice visit with one of our state legislative offices a couple of weeks ago. We were able to have about 8 representatives from Senator Ben Allen's district office, visit us at the ECL facility. And we provided them with a tour and then also had lunch with them and kind of gave an overview of West Basin. Following that, I do want to say thank you to Augustine on my team for putting together the tour. I want to thank Daryl Ramos Young for being our tour guide on that day. Also the admin team, Kaya, for helping us out with some of the lunch and other things. And then also Aaron from the PI department for helping us with the social media afterwards. I also see that Charles Gale from Metropolitan Water District is on the call, and I'm not going to call you out, Charles, but I do just want to say thank you to him. We've been working with Charles the past couple of months to try to host some district meetings with the different district offices with both West Basin and Metropolitan Water District there. So this was kind of one of the things that happened following our meetings with Metropolitan and the district offices. So thank you, Charles and Metropolitan, for your ongoing partnership with us, these offices. Next slide, please. So this is a big topic, I think, that we're all pretty aware of, hearing in the news out there with the federal tariffs. This will definitely be one of the priority issues that we talk about when we're in Washington, D.C. Next week. There are potential impacts to, well, I mean, all of us really, but certainly as an organization, there's some potential impacts to West Basin with the federal tariffs and what's happening there right now. And so you might have heard in the news that Governor Newsom and the Attorney General Rob Bonta recently filed a lawsuit challenging some of these emergency powers that have been used to implement some of these tariffs. But another thing that California has been doing has been to explore forming some of its own trade partnerships to bypass hopefully some of the tariffs. Don't know if that'll be effective or work, but it is something that's very important to the governor and his administration. And again, there's been just billions of dollars of impact on California and including the water industry as well. So this is definitely a topic that we'll be tracking very closely. We've been working with BSA, our federal lobbyists, to track this, and it will be something that I'm fairly certain we'll be talking about next week in Washington, D.C. Next slide. And then in order to accelerate some funding for certain activities related to the recent wildfires, there's an early budget action. So AB 100 signed by Governor Newsom recently that provides $170 million in accelerated funding to conservancies to do forest and vegetation management, and then an additional $10 million for wildfire response and resiliency. And so this is something that Governor Newsom has been trying to do, is to kind of cut back on some of the red tape with permitting and getting funding out to those critically needed areas, especially with regards to the wildfire and the wildfire response. And so this was a good action that they took to kind of work toward that. Next slide. I also have an update on the California governor's race, which will be next year. So Xavier Becerra, who was the former U.S. Health Secretary under President Biden, a longtime California politician, he announced his candidacy for California governor next year. He joins several other candidates or potential candidates that we have listed here. So former Representative Katie Porter, who represented Orange County. We have former LA Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa. We have the current California State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurmond. And she hasn't announced her candidacy yet. I'm sure she's still weighing it. If she does, she'll probably become the front runner, but that's former Vice President Kamala Harris. We also heard recently that the Attorney General Rob Bonta will not run in 2026. And if we do have a fairly stacked field because of the way that California does its election procedures, we'll have likely have the spring election, then we'll have a top two that would then go into a runoff in the fall. So I'm sure we'll continue to see other folks join the race and some drop out in the coming months. Next slide, please. Another big area of importance to California and our industry is relates to the California or CEQA, and the governor and the legislature are continuing to look for ways to do permitting reform in some of the key areas, and that includes water, and allowing a couple of years back, 2-3 years ago, they relaxed some of the permitting requirements so that they could capture more of the storm runoffs from those huge atmospheric river receding years ago, and able to put that into groundwater storage. So there's kind of a history there, and it's something that they're continuing to look at. So just recently, a Assembly Select Committee on Permitting Reform released a final report on permitting as it relates to housing, but also kind of was taking into account water and transportation projects. that were being held up by permitting delays and inefficiencies. And so this legislative cycle, there's been over 20 housing permitting bills that have been introduced. There's some other legislation related to water and transportation that have been introduced. And I think certainly as a result of the Palisades and Eden fires, we're going to continue to see that be a huge priority area for the legislature. And because we have, those fire risk prone areas in our service area, it's something that will impact our residents that we serve. So it is just another topic that we'll be tracking very closely as that moves forward. Next slide, please. Then I wanted to give an update also on the Delta Conveyance Project. Just a reminder, as you probably remember, Metropolitan Water District last December voted to invest an additional $142 million into the planning and pre-construction activities for the Delta Conveyance Project. So it's something that they are very supportive of, and West Basin did indicate its support of that action by Metropolitan. But just more recently, the State Water Board has been holding a series of hearings on a petition by the Governor Newsom administration to amend water right permits so that flows can be diverted from new points on the Sacramento River, basically things that would allow this Delta Conveyance Project to move forward in the future. There continues to be, opposition by Northern California agencies, environmental groups, Native tribes. There continues to be support by, a variety of interests throughout the state. Certainly Southern California is a big supporter of the Delta Conveyance Project. But the governor's administration has had recent concerns about just delays to that hearing schedule. It isn't going as quickly as they hoped, just to the overall timeline of the project. And so they're really hoping that they can get a final decision to be made on the project by late 2026. I don't know if that's realistic, but that is what they're, shooting for. And so that's going to be the messaging that you're going to see from Governor Newsom in the coming year is to try to get a decision by next year. I'll go through just a few updates on some legislation that we've been tracking, some bills of interest for this board. The first is in relation to Metropolitan Water District. So AB 523 authored by Assemblymember Jackie Irwin from our service area and sponsored by Eastern Municipal Water District. This relates to Metropolitan Water District and allowing for alternate representatives on the board. It would allow for the use of an alternate representative for those member agencies that have only one representative. Just to give some updates, it was heard in Metropolitan at the committee and board level a couple of weeks ago. The committee did support or did vote for a support position on that bill. However, it did narrowly fail at the board of directors meeting. And so Metropolitan does not have a support position on that piece of legislation right now. We heard an update from Eastern Municipal Water District last week, and they say that they're continuing to pursue the bill. They're not giving up on it. There's going to be some additional amendments that are coming up. They're not in print yet. It does have a hearing date in the Assembly Local Government Committee on April 30th, so next week. So we'll get some more information once that hearing has been held and to see whether or not it's going to get passed to the next step of the legislative process. All right, next slide. This one relates to the Brown Act and teleconferencing. So AB 259, this is authored by Assemblymember Blanca Rubio from West Covina, relates to open meetings and local agencies and being able to use teleconferencing as part of the regular meeting process. The sponsor of this bill is CSDA and Three Valleys Municipal Water District. And essentially what it would do is a couple of years ago, or in 2022, AB 2449 was passed, and that authorized the use of alternative teleconferencing rules for just cause and emergencies. So that's in place now. However, that bill was written to sunset on January 1st of 2026. So it's got about 8 months left before that sunsets. And so essentially what this bill would do would be to remove that sunset date and extend the provisions of that legislation permanently. And so this bill does have very wide support. Metropolitan Water District, Aqua, a ton of different water agencies and local governments are in support of it. There's no known opposition to it at this time. It did pass the Assembly Local Government Committee by a 9-0 vote. And so I think this is a bill that staff will likely want to take to this board for support position possibly next month. So just wanted to give a heads up on that one. And then the next slide is a bill of interest relates to decoupling. And there's been some director interest on this topic. So I just wanted to provide a quick update on this bill. It's SB 473 by Senator Padilla relating to water corporations and rates and surcharges. This was an issue that we engaged on a couple years back with some of our IOUs and California Water Agency. And in 2022, the legislature passed SB 1469, which was authored by Senator Bradford and allowed for decoupling under the CPUC rate setting process. However, I guess since that time, the CPUC has denied all decoupling requests. And decoupling really allows certain water and electricity agencies to separate their fixed costs from their variable costs so that they can do things like establish water conservation programs without having to, raise rates or to depend on that volumetric water source sales. And so this would just kind of give some additional, strength and backing to that concept. And so it offers a permanent solution by allowing CPUC to permit water utilities to use decoupling when requested. So, we do have IOUs obviously in our service area, Cal Water, Golden State, Cal-Am, that could benefit from this. We haven't necessarily engaged with them. They haven't reached out to us yet on this bill. So nothing to report on that. And so for now, we don't have a position on the bill, but it is something that we'll continue to track. And I did just want to report on it because of that director interest in it. Okay, and then next slide, please. And we've got a few bills of interest related to PFAS. And the first one here is SB 454 by Senator McNerney. This would create the PFAS mitigation fund. It kind of aligns with the federal legislation that we just talked about that Augustine presented to you. It is something that's widely supported by the water industry. Again, when it comes to these kind of issues, what's most important is that if we do have these mitigation type funds, that recycled water agencies are able to access them and to benefit from them, and that our communities are able to benefit from them. So, while the legislation is good, it will, and I think it is something that we might want to take a support position on. Metropolitan is in support, Aqua's in support. We just need to make sure that recycled water is included in that. That's something that we work with water reuse on. And so again, I think it's something that warrants us considering a support position on next month. We'll plan to bring that back to this committee. The next one is SB 682. And this is a bill by our Senator Ben Allen, which would prohibit selling products with PFAS as of January 1st of 2027. There'd be additional prohibitions in 2035 and 2040. Again, this is just kind of a pretty straightforward bill. It's supported by WRD, by Aqua, by California Association of Sanitation Agencies, by a number of environmental groups. It is opposed by manufacturers, those who produce products with PFAS in them, are opposed to it. But again, it's a pretty straightforward project that would limit the kind of the upstream production of PFAS that could get into groundwater supply, into some of our own supplies from treated wastewater. So again, this is something that we could take to the board for support position next month. And then finally, at AB 794 by Assembly Member Gabriel, This is relating to the California Safe Drinking Water Act. It would require the State Water Board to adopt via emergency regulations the federal water quality standards for PFAS that went into effect last year. There are significant concerns from the water industry about this bill. The coalitions have been very active in it, so I'm not recommending any sort of position by West Basin at this time because it is being managed by the coalitions. But it is being opposed by Aqua, CMUA, WRD, Water Reuse. It did pass the assembly, one of the assembly committees on a 5-2 vote. It's now going to go to appropriations for further discussion. It is supported by environmental and NGOs, but this is a bill that, again, we're not advising any sort of position right now, but we will continue to track it through our coalitions and partnerships that we have there. All right. That concludes my state update. I guess I'll pause if there's any questions before I go over to the federal update.
And thank you, Matt. Director Deere, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Matt, you're pretty thorough, so I guess no questions there, so you can go to the federal report. Thank you.
Thank you, President Gray. Okay, so going now to federal issues. So we have our spring 2025 Washington, D.C. lobbying trip next week. That'll take place from April 28th to April 30th. I know that there will be 3 directors that will be joining us, EJ and I, on that trip. We're looking forward to it. We do have meetings that are being scheduled and still finalizing that agenda, which was sent out to the directors today, but that will continue to be updated this week. That'll include meetings with our federal delegation, with some of our Legislator of the Year awardees, potentially some of the federal agencies that we work with, and then some of our other partners that we often will meet with when we're in Washington, D.C. So again, directors should continue to expect updates most days this week leading up into the weekend. And then we'll hit the ground running next week. And if there are any feedback or questions for us ahead of the trip, please let us know, and we're happy to discuss those with you further. Okay, and then next slide is another topic that we might be a topic of discussion in Washington, D.C. next week. This is related to the industrial tax credit legislation that was just introduced last week on April 17th. This is called the Advancing Water Reuse Act. West Basin over the last year or two has really worked closely with Water Reuse and others to kind of talk about this topic, about the concept of industrial tax credits for water recycling facilities. And so what this legislation would do is to provide a tax incentive for businesses to invest in water recycling projects to benefit their own needs and also the communities where they operate. And the mechanism is a 30% tax credit for qualified investments in what are being termed as qualifying water reuse projects. And on the next page, you can kind of see a few of those examples which identify what those qualifying water reuse projects are. I won't go through each of them at this time, but I'll just say that this is something that we're happy to see. It's something that we're still assessing the bill at this time. We could take a possible support position on this in the near future, or ask for that in the near future if it's something that our staff is happy with the language there. So I will be working with some of our team to do a little bit of a deeper dive on this introduced bill. Again, it's also something for us to advocate for with some of our refineries or with our other partners that could be beneficiaries of this in the future. And so again, we're happy to see this introduced, and hopefully it's something that we can kind of come up to speed a little bit more on this week so that we can speak to it when we're in Washington, D.C. Next week. Right, next slide. And Congress recently passed a budget resolution. It's kind of getting them set up for reconciliation bills that are going to hopefully come forward later this year. As you can see on some of the bullet points here, would allow taxes to be cut up by by up to $5 trillion over the next 10 years, but it would also raise the debt ceiling by $5 trillion, which will be needed as that's currently set to expire in August or September of this year. It would also require some significant cuts, so $1.5 trillion in house cuts to social service programs such as Medicaid and food stamps and other programs. There is a target of next month for the House to enact their tax bill, and then the Senate has a little bit of a longer lead in, so they're hoping to have that done by August of 2025. So this is another topic that our lobbyist VSA will keep us apprised of in the coming months. Next slide. And then I kind of touched on PFAS in some of the previous slides, but this is just to kind of mention that the current EPA rule that requires water utilities to work or to remove PFAS in drinking water by 2029. That's the current standard. However, there has been a lot of concerns that have been expressed by multiple industries. And we have a new EPA administrator now, Lee Zeldin. He's been hearing these concerns. He wants to try to address them however he can. And some of those concerns are the added expenses that are needed to upgrade systems to treat that contaminated water source. There's also the potential liability, as Augustine talked to, on the CERCLA or the Superfund, that could potentially go beyond polluters pay, where water agencies would potentially have to pay the cost of cleaning up some of these things if they're not exempted. And then in a different industry, contamination of farmland with what's called PFAS sludge. And so again, they've been hearing these concerns. They're not sure yet if they'll be able to change the regulated limits. That's something that they're looking at. I think at the very least, they're hoping to maybe extend some of the compliance timelines for affected industries and agencies. So we could see that 2029 timeline change in the future. But again, that remains to be seen. So something we're tracking very closely. The next slide. Right. And this is Waters of the United States. This is something that we talk about every now and then. It's kind of a complex issue. So just to kind of boil it down, the EPA and the U.S. Army Corps are currently planning to issue new rules regarding waters of the United States. These are waters of the United States that allows federal and state and local entities to basically regulate how these are used and what can be discharged into them, things of that nature. So there is a proposed rule that would redefine bodies of the water that are jurisdictional under the Federal Clean Water Act to follow Sackett versus EPA court ruling. And that ruling said that only those bodies of water with a continuous surface connection to traditional interstate navigable waters would be covered by the Federal Clean Water Act. So this would this is something that we saw with the Trump administration last time. They would essentially decrease the number of covered bodies of water. This is something that California has, fought against the federal administration. So California might, attempt to kind of fill in those gaps with its own rules and regulations. The EPA and the U.S. Army Corps are holding at least 6 listening sessions to gather input from stakeholders as well as state and local officials. So again, not something that we're intimately involved in, but it is something that we're tracking and we'll provide updates as needed to this committee. And then final slide here, just a few other updates. So again, I think I mentioned this up front, continuing monitoring of the tariffs and the impacts to our organization and the industry. We all read the news, but that's something that West Basin staff, multiple departments are looking at and dealing with on a daily, if not weekly basis. Also, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security recently announced plans to eliminate FEMA. And there's a FEMA Independence Act that was introduced that would actually move FEMA from under the Department of Homeland Security and make it its own independent agency reporting to the Office of the President. So we'll keep you apprised on that. And then also the Health and Human Services Secretary announced plans to reduce fluoride in drinking water. As you probably know, Metropolitan Water District does fluoridate our regional water supplies. Most areas in California have fluoride in their drinking water supplies. Really right now, it's just kind of identifying this issue and saying that more research and study is going to be conducted before they make other decisions, possibly in the future. Potential impacts on states and water suppliers still up, remains to be seen. Recently, Utah became the first state in the country to ban fluoride from being added to its drinking water supplies. So there is some momentum there, but it's going to play out with this new secretary. And so we'll keep you updated, and I'm sure Metropolitan is tracking it very closely as well. With that said, that completes my federal update, and I'm happy to take any questions if there are.
Thank you, Matt. Are there any questions, Director Deere?
No, thank you.
All right. Matt, I'll wait until the list of legislators we're supposed to meet on the DC trip. I think they came out today, but just want to make sure they're confirmed. But thank you for your report. Anything else, Matt?
Not on this item.
Next item then?
Yes, Madam Chair, this brings us to our last information item. It's our monthly Metropolitan Water District update. And for the presentation, we have Matt Bay, Manager of Water Policy and Resources Development.
Thank you, EJ, and I'll do my best to do justice to Tammy, who usually provides this report. But this report summarizes recent board discussions at Metropolitan. It begins on page 76 of the committee packet. And then in addition, there's PowerPoint slides that begin on page 92 of the packet. I'll be going off of those slides for this presentation. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So first slide here, this is in relation to member agency treated water cost recovery workshops. So in April of 2024, Metropolitan's Board of Directors approved a 2-year budget with associated rates and charges. And as part of that action, the board directed their staff to address treated water cost recovery options as a priority in future business model discussions. The board further emphasized that a final methodology should be prioritized as part of the broader new business model discussions. And since last year, Metropolitan staff has put together a number of discussions with member agencies to review and analyze treated water cost recovery options. That's something that West Basin has been actively participated in as part of those work group discussions. And Metropolitan staff presented alternatives for treatment, what we call peaking and standby charges, to analyze the various alternatives. And through these discussions over the last several months, there's broad recognition that the status quo is no longer sufficient for how treated water cost recovery is handled. And so after reviewing staff analysis and alternatives, member agencies collectively agreed on an expanded set of alternatives for that treatment peaking and standby charges, which includes additional member agency proposed alternatives for cost recovery. The majority of member agencies have expressed support for a member agency proposal, which would be implemented with phase-in strategies beginning in calendar year 2027. These are a set of recommendations for the Financial Policies Business Model Support Sub-Working Group for the treated water cost recovery rate element, and then also the unrestricted reserve policy. Next slide. Okay, this slide summarizes the recommendations for these areas, which are to establish a conservative assumption for water transactions during budget and rate developments, which we saw kind of during the last 2-year budget cycle, when they adopted a more conservative sales target or sales estimation approach, and then also to adopt a fixed treatment charge for treated water cost recovery. The treated water cost recovery alternative is a component of Metropolitan's efforts to refine its business model, consistent with the board's budget directive to develop solutions that ensure long-term financial and treated water rate stability. Important to West Basin. Next slide. I'll now talk about the Climate Adaptation Master Plan for Water. And last month, members of the Camp for Water Joint Task Force reviewed the draft Camp for Water 5-year implementation strategy report. Earlier this month, on April 8th, the the board approved this new strategy, it'll set a path towards institutionalizing climate adaptation at Metropolitan to assist in making decisions moving forward with projects and drought resiliency. This slide outlines the different components of the master plan. So the IRP regional needs assessment will be updated regularly. It includes scenario planning that has created the foundation for some of their time-bound targets of the plan that have been identified. This will help with planning to prepare for what could be a potentially worst-case scenario to provide supplies for member agency demands in the future. Metropolitan has completed some climate risk and vulnerability assessments. This is the foundation of the plan in recognizing all of the environmental risks and not just the risks associated with drought cycles and water supply. Metropolitan continues with their infrastructure studies and assessments, particularly with improvements to its infrastructure to ensure that state water project supplies are available, continue to be available for all member agencies. As you recall, a couple of years ago, there was some water shortages on the state water project that impacted some of those state water project dependent areas. And so they are moving forward with these projects to try to mitigate that in the future. So Metropolitan has built into their schedules moving forward to ensure that they will continue to engage with partners across the different sectors. In the middle section of this slide is the implementation strategy that the board just approved. These are the time-bound targets that will be used for planning. That includes climate decision-making about how to integrate programs into their CIP. And the adaptive management process will include annual reports with the most updated data as opposed to updating plans every 5 years. Now, the business model is a critical part of this, of all of this work, which is moving on a parallel track. Ad hoc committees are in place that will make recommendations to the committee and board members, and these areas will be integrated into the way that Metropolitan approaches its climate adaptation master plan moving forward. A link has been provided in the written report to access a copy of the 5-year implementation strategy that was just released. All right, next slide. This relates to drought mitigation and the state water project dependent areas. So a few years ago, the last drought, as I mentioned, there was a very low allocation of state water project supplies, 5% in back-to-back years. Metropolitan was only able to take water for health and human safety as part of that. It really impacted their ability to deliver state water project supplies specifically to the Rialto pipeline service area that you can kind of see on the map there. So new additions to Metropolitan's infrastructure will enable delivery of water from Diamond Valley Lake and the Colorado River Aqueduct to benefit that area and to preserve limited imported supplies for those state water project dependent areas. A set of 4 interrelated projects will replace, refurbish, upgrade, and construct new facilities to mitigate any vulnerabilities to state water project supplies. Those projects include the Inland Feeder Rialto Pipeline Intertie, the Inland Feeder Foothill Pump Station Intertie, the Inland Feeder Badlands Tunnel Surge Protection, and the Wadsworth Pump Pass Bypass Line. These projects are scheduled to all be completed during 2027. All right, next slide. Upon completion, the Rialto pipeline will be able to access water stored in Diamond Valley Lake. As you know, right now, Diamond Valley Lake is very full. I think it's about 97% full right now. It does have a storage capacity of about 810,000 acre feet. So being able to access that storage system will be highly beneficial to the overall system in those state water project dependent areas. Let's move to the next slide. All right, I think this is the final slide here for you. This is the water supply update, and these graphics depict conditions as of the beginning of this month, April 1st. So as you can see, the Northern Sierra snowpack is above average at around 118% of the April 1st average. Lake Oroville's reservoir continues to be managed under flood control releases by the Department of Water Resources, while continuing to conserve as much water as possible. Currently, the Lake Oroville storage is just above 3 million acre feet, which is pretty high for it historically. And then for the San Luis Reservoir, which is kind of in the middle of the state water project storage is 94% of its capacity at about 1 million acre feet. The state water project allocation was recently increased to 40%. That now matches what the final allocation was for last year, 40%. And it started at the beginning of the year at 5%, and it's been raised several times since then. There's still a chance it could be raised in either May or June. I don't know if that's likely at this point, since we haven't had a whole lot of storm activity this last month or so. But 40% is still a pretty good number for Metropolitan. It allows Metropolitan again to maintain its record amount of storage this year of 3.8 million acre feet. With this, the state water project now gives Metropolitan 765,000 acre feet just from the state water project. And it has allowed Metropolitan to be able to secure water sales transactions outside of their service area that will help to support the current year's revenues. Moving on to the Upper Colorado River Basin, snowpack has been tracking near average throughout the season and is currently at 82%, just below average. So that represents 3 years in a row now of average or above average snowpack in that Upper Colorado River Basin. It's allowed Lake Mead to kind of maintain a less severe shortage level. And so Metropolitan's combined imported water supplies from State Water Project and Colorado River are now about 1.6 million acre feet. And demands from member agencies are currently forecasted to be about the same amount, 1.6 million acre feet, which does include 150,000 acre feet of reverse cyclic deliveries to member agencies. And so for now, Metropolitan continues to operate in surplus mode for its water supplies. So good picture at this time. That wraps up my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions on the Metropolitan monthly update.
Thank you, Matt. Director Deere, any questions on that report?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you, Matt. You were thorough. No questions from me. And can we go to the next item, please? Thank you, Matt.
Madam Chair, the next item is closed session, and staff has no closed session items, which brings us to director's comments, future agenda items.
All right, Director Deere, any comments, please?
No, a very efficient meeting. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. Appreciate it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Deere, and thank you, staff, for your very thorough reports this afternoon. And I believe it was indicated that Charles Gills is on the line, and thank you, Charles, for being on the line and for being helpful to West Basin. And so with that, thank you, Mr. General Manager. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Director Gray. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.